How can Patrick Star be this dumb and genius at the same time? 1 second he's eating sand, and the next he's explaining chemistry. And if you think it's just random cartoon logic, think again, because I don't think that's quite it. I think something's been going on this whole time. Something the show's been hinting at for years, but nobody really saw it. It all started making sense when I rewatched this one episode. And let me tell you, the stuff I found in this episode leads us to the key for Patrick's real identity. The episode plays out like any other goofy day. SpongeBob and Patrick go jellyfishing, until later Patrick runs off a cliff. Classic stuff. But when SpongeBob finds him at the bottom, something is different. Patrick's body is fine, but his head is missing. And after a short moment of searching, SpongeBob places Patrick's head back, and suddenly, his brain cogs wheel starts to fire up. You see, this scene might just be exaggerating, but the way they show us that Patrick's brain cogs are filled with cobwebs indicate that there was a time when his brain was very active, but hasn't been properly working in a long time. And once his brain worked again, we could see what his brains were actually capable of. Suddenly, Patrick starts speaking in full, articulate sentences.
Look at them, these graceful, stoic creatures of the deep.
He references philosophy, debates science with Sandy, critiques music and art with Squidward, and more than anything, he's completely detached from the people he once loved. He even breaks up his friendship with SpongeBob for being intellectually incompatible. This episode plays like a typical dumb guy becomes smart plot, but if we look closer, this is where the paradox cracks wide open. When Patrick becomes intelligent, it changes who he is, personally. He still remembers SpongeBob and everyone else, still remembers everything that happened before, but their friendship doesn't mean anything to him anymore. And that's when you realize the episode shows us the real version of Patrick, the one that's been locked away. Because the ending tells you almost everything. Patrick, now friendless and emotionally empty, starts to panic. He tries everything to break his brain and get back to the way things were. Eventually, they discover it wasn't his personality that changed, it was the brain coral. SpongeBob mistakenly picks up random brain coral and puts it in Patrick's head. And once it's removed, he reverts back to his normal, derpy self. But here's the clue nobody talks about. He chooses to go back willingly. Why? I mean, really, why would anyone do that? Most of us want to be smarter, right? We chase knowledge, we crave understanding. But Patrick, the second he unlocks his full potential, he gives it all up. Is it simply because being smart makes him lonely? Is it just because his friendship with SpongeBob is more important? Sure, that's part of it. But I don't think that's the whole story. Because think about it, who chooses to be dumb? That's not a normal decision, unless that intelligence comes with a cost. A cost so heavy that staying stupid feels like the only way to be safe. Not just safe for him, safe for everyone around him. But that's the twist. This episode doesn't solve the paradox, not completely. It opens up a much bigger question. If Patrick used to be this smart, what did he know? And what did he do? And why is he trying so hard to bury it? And that series of questions led me down a rabbit hole of hidden clues scattered across multiple episodes, all pointing to something shocking. Now, like I said, this dumb genius thing is a weird paradox in Patrick's character, and it happens frequently throughout the years. Let me give you just a few examples for better context. In Squidtastic Voyage, Sandy shrinks a submarine and sends SpongeBob and Patrick into Squidward's body for some medical purpose. When things go wrong, it's Patrick who calmly explains how to use soda carbonation to power the ship's escape. In the episode Wet Painters, Patrick goes as far as questioning Mr. Krabs' logic with an actually sound argument about dollar value and emotional attachment. And there's a lot more of these moments. You see, I don't think this is just random behavior. He could break into a deep, introspective monologue about identity and purpose, and just seconds later, poof, it's gone. Like it never happened. I'm convinced that Patrick is trying to stay dumb, like trying really, really hard. But sometimes the smart version slips out, and every time that happens, it's like his mind slams on the brakes before he can go too far. But what was he so afraid of remembering? Is it that his intelligence would instantly make him a bad person? No. The real danger is what happens when you give him power, and it all has to do with his experience. Let's get one thing straight. Patrick is scary strong. We've seen it dozens of times, where Patrick is shown to have inhuman strength. We've seen him transform into muscular form for wrestling, breaking things easily with his hands, even swinging around his home like nothing. With the right motivation, Patrick could easily release his true power, which is sadly quite the rare case. But nothing showcases Patrick's true power more than the episode Karate Star. In this episode, Patrick discovers his innate ability to do karate moves, and suddenly he becomes unstoppable. He's slicing through buildings, boats, streetlights, simply because he feels like it. But here's the kicker. The moment he realizes he can't control his hands, he doesn't even bother to try and control it. He just chops the hand off. That's only the beginning of how bad it gets. His hand just regrows, but he could control this one. Now, this isn't a new thing, since most of you guys already know, starfish can regrow a limb back, so it just makes sense that Patrick could do the same thing. What's interesting, however, notice when I said Patrick abuses his power for selfish reasons simply because he feels like it? It has been a consistent theme for him throughout the show. In Rule of Dumb, Patrick becomes king after a royal ministry tells him that he's a long-lost royal family. And within minutes, he's abusing the power, making cruel demands, destroying things, and even exiling people for fun. In Driven to Tears, Patrick discovers that he's a prodigy in a boating school test, passing the exams with full marks and gets a prize of Hot Rod Boatmobile. It takes less than a week for him to become arrogant and rub the achievement in SpongeBob's face. Even in Patrick Smartpants, he's willing to prove everyone wrong and calls them stupid just to feed his ego. Every time Patrick is given a little power, he abuses it. But this pattern also brings us something interesting. In many cases in his power abusive episodes, Patrick is almost always aware of his selfish side. So every time he abuses things too far, there's only one logical solution he knows of: removing the power. He chooses to return the crown in Rule of Dumb, he chooses to be stupid again in Patrick Smartpants, he also throws away his hot rod in Driven to Tears, and finally, he cuts his own hand off in Karate Stars. So while Patrick is almost never wise enough to control the power, at least he's smart enough to keep everyone, including himself, safe by being powerless. And that's what I think his stupidity really is, a defense mechanism. Because somewhere inside Patrick, there's something he's terrified of becoming again. That also brings us to the next piece of the puzzle. If Patrick still has all his strength, and he used to be smart, then I finally knew what he was like in the past. And trust me, it's not the version of Patrick you've grown to love. Well, what if I told you someone in Bikini Bottom already knows? It's none other than our senile superhero, Mermaid Man. Now, Mermaid Man is basically the town's retired superhero. He fought villains back in the day, saved the city, yada yada yada. But there's a slight detail that's intrigued me since his first appearance. You see, the old man could sense evil. In Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 1, SpongeBob and Patrick visit the Shady Shoals to meet the two superheroes, but every time someone mentions evil, Mermaid Man just goes straight into panic. Now, you might be saying that Mermaid Man just has PTSD simply because of the word itself. But notice in this scene, Patrick is nowhere near him. Later in the episode, SpongeBob visits them by himself and mentions the word evil again. But this time, Mermaid Man didn't react to it.
The evil man Ray swoops down and swipes the gun away and shoots all the others.
Later in the episode, Barnacle Boy said the word one more time, and he reacted.
Evil afoot! Evil! There it is!
And it's not just a one-time thing with this episode, because in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, there's no Patrick in the episode, and the old man didn't say the word once, even though they did fight Dirty Bubble. But in the third, it shifts again. SpongeBob and Patrick visits the Mermalair and once again walks into the vicinity.
Evil!
It's quite an odd detail in the series, especially in the show where the timeline never really exists. The same is also applied for the opposite, because Patrick was also scared of the existence of Mermaid Man utility belts. Patrick got scared because he could sense the belt from behind, but once he knew it was SpongeBob, he was relieved. Also, let's not forget the fact that Patrick knows a few things about how the utility belt works.
Well, it should be set to W for Wumbo.
Did you set it to Wumbo?
I mean, the details just keep adding up. But it wasn't until later in Season 7, Back to the Past, where we could see the most obvious sign of evil Patrick. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick get access to Mermaid Man's secret lair, and among the artifacts is a time machine. Barnacle Boy told them not to touch anything, so of course, Patrick slams the machine thinking it's a vending machine. and accidentally launches all 4 of them into the past, to the exact moment Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy were about to defeat Man Ray with the famous tartar sauce. But the plan goes wrong because, well, Patrick ate it. And just like that, history is rewritten. Man Ray escapes, conquers Bikini Bottom, and enslaves the city. The Krusty Krab becomes a prison camp. The heroes lose everything. They kept doing the same thing a few times after that, but the results remained unchanged. Patrick keeps eating the sauce. And through it all, who's operating the time machine? Patrick. I might be jumping here, but Patrick looks like unconsciously trying to sabotage Mermaid Man. And no, I'm not going to accept the, oh, it's just stupid Patrick things. This episode is proof that Patrick used to fight both Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy a long time ago, and his body is still reacting to it.
When are we gonna have those 2 reclassified as villains?
Yeah, maybe you guys should have. The real villain of this city was always under your nose. Wait a minute. There's a star on Mermaid Man's nose. Is it a sign? A hidden message even? Everything starts to make sense now. This very detail could explain the whole story, and I'm sure it will blow your mind. Let's rewind a little bit, because things are about to get weird now. We've seen Patrick rip off his own karate hand to stop the destruction, right? He can't really control his right hand, so he chopped it off, and then he could control it again. What if that's how he's been handling his body for years? There's a real-world fact you might already know. Starfish can regenerate. You chop off a limb, it grows back. In some species, a whole new starfish can grow from just one arm, and the show uses it as a comedy mainly. We've already seen Patrick grow a separate, fully functional body part, but that raises a terrifying possibility. The new hands, is it a different part of Patrick? Because here's the part that ties it all together. In real life, starfish don't have traditional brains or internal organs, but in SpongeBob's universe, Patrick does. We've seen his guts, his heart, even his brain on multiple occasions. So if he's regenerating those organs, that means he's growing new versions of himself. New brain, new memories, new intelligence, or lack of it. Now suddenly, it all makes sense. Why does Patrick constantly forget things he just said? Why does he remember intense facts in one moment and lose them in the next? Why does he act like a completely different person from episode to episode? Because he is a different starfish every episode. So every time things go too far, every time he gets too strong, too smart, too dangerous, Patrick destroys a part of himself and lets a softer, dumber version take over. This could also very well explain the whole story arc of Patrick and Mermaid Man. Let's just connect every piece of the puzzle. If Patrick was once a supervillain, and he used to be smart, powerful, and feared, then the next big question is, what happened to him between that past and present Patrick? What's the story that made the supervillain go tame and stupid the way he is today? Here's my theory. Once, a long time ago, Patrick was a supervillain. He used to do evil things and cause damage in the deep seas. He also fought with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy countless times to know and understand every single one of their gadgets. In short, Patrick is undefeated. But at some point, Patrick realized what he'd become. Maybe it was a final battle with Mermaid Man, maybe he hurt someone he cared about, or maybe, and this is the most Patrick thing of all, he finally understood how lonely it was to be feared. And so he made a choice. He chose to erase himself along with everyone's knowledge about him. So he made one final big plan. He made some cutting-edge technology that could wipe everyone's memory about him. Maybe he made a massive neutralizer like the one in Men in Black, or anything else like it. He's smart, right? So I bet he could do that. But Mermaid Man knows about his plan, and he also tries to leave clues that could lead him back to Patrick. That's why he started to wear that star-nosed mask, hoping that one day he could recall his memory and get reminded of a force that once threatened Bikini Bottom. His body also couldn't completely forget it, that's why he's screaming evil every time he senses Patrick. And after Patrick made sure to erase everyone's memory, he started to erase his own power and memory by slowly dismantling the parts of himself, letting a weaker version of him grow back every time, until the only Patrick left was the one too stupid to be a threat. Thinking again, the whole stack of brain corals in Patrick's smart pants could be his. He just forgets about it. The possibility is endless here. But every now and then, a piece slips through. A spark of the original Patrick shows up. like in Patrick's Smartpants, where his intelligence returns, and with it, cold logic and zero empathy. Like in Squidtastic Voyage, when he solves a chemistry problem faster than Sandy. Like in Secret Box, where he says,
"The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma."
he still remembers. Speaking about it, Patrick's song could also be a proof of his genius. I mean, the guy manages to terrorize the entire town with his music alone. What a talent. You came here looking for a paradox, but instead you found a warning, a tragedy, and maybe the most complex character lore in Bikini Bottom. And now that you've seen what's underneath the rock, you'll never look at Patrick the same way again. But this isn't the only SpongeBob mystery that rewrites the lore. I have a theory about Pearl's past, and I know for a fact that I finally solved it. I'll see you in the next dive.